Hey everyone, welcome to Vegas Showbiz and welcome to our review of the Jerry Cantrell concert in Las Vegas at the House of Blues in Mandalay Bay on Saturday, May 7th, 2022. First and foremost, if you're looking for concert footage from that night, no worries, I've got you covered. I've already dropped 3 videos from that night, each of which features a different song from the show. I will link to those in the description of this video, or you can just browse my channel to find them. But got some good stuff for you there if you want to check that out. This, however, is the video that I've been looking forward to doing. This is my chance to talk about the show, review the show. Full disclosure up front, I'm a huge Alice in Chains fan. They're my favorite band of all time. Born and raised in Seattle. I was a teenager in the 90s when the grunge movement hit. So, you know, those bands, Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, and also Jimi Hendrix from a different era, but also a Seattle guy. Those were my primary and still are my primary musical influences and heroes. So getting to see Jerry on Saturday night and playing all the songs that were like the soundtrack to my teens was pretty awesome, pretty special. So no bad reviews coming here. I guess I'll give you that spoiler alert. So here's our agenda. We're going to start off with the opener. Phillip-Michael Scales is his name. I was not familiar with him or his music, but I'll review that. Then we'll get into the Jerry Cantrell show itself, of course, that's why we're all here. Finally, I've got some footage from the show to share with you. This is more of the crowd interaction stuff. There was one funny part where Jerry told a story about something that happened that night in the green room before the show, and this had never happened in his entire career, so it was an interesting one, and I'll just share all that footage with you at the end, so stick around for that. All right, let's get right into it. Let's start with the opener, Phillip-Michael Scales. I was not familiar with him. He's a one-man band. I mean, he's out there. He's got a great baritone voice, very soul, full of emotion, great singer. He's got his Fender Stratocaster, an amp, and a pedal where he's controlling like a bass drum sound that's coming through the PA. And that's it. You know, there's nowhere to hide for him. I mean, it's a one-man show. He describes his music as a mixture of like neo soul and blues. And that makes sense to me. I found his guitar playing, I thought he had a lot of those sweet soul, kind of inverted triad style chords, a lot of the Hendrixy little trills and accents and stuff like that. And then every once in a while he would just bust into like this pentatonic blues lick and just kind of rip it out real quick, you know, make the crowd happy with some of those blues licks that he was tearing up. So he was good. I mean, I definitely enjoyed his guitar playing, but for me it was his voice that I was most fond of. As I mentioned, kind of this a little bit deeper, kind of a baritone style, just so full of emotion, and it just carried and resonated so well. Really dug his singing. The lyrics were personal and told a story. And he told stories between his songs. I appreciated his message and found him to be inspirational. You know, he was talking about how he almost quit music a couple different times, but decided to stick with it, and good things happen to those that keep working. I mean, a couple months ago he was performing on the Ellen DeGeneres show, and now he's touring opening for Jerry Cantrell, so props to that guy. I mean, good for him. He stuck with it, and it's starting to work out for him. I enjoyed the music. I encourage you to check it out. Phillip-Michael Scales was his name again. One last thing about him before we move on. My favorite part about his show, it was part of the crowd interaction where it was toward the end of his set, and he said, you guys ready to see Jerry Cantrell? And the crowd's like, yeah, you know, and he's like, no, you're not. You're not ready. He's like, I've seen this show 11 or 12 times now, and each time I see it, I think I'm ready. I think I know exactly what to expect, and every night he blows me away. So you'll see, but you're not ready. And he was right, too. Obviously, it did blow me away, but that was just kind of a funny way that he left us. Okay, so next, let's move on to the show review itself. I've got a lot of different thoughts to share with you about the show. So as mentioned, Jerry Cantrell is the guitar player, primary songwriter, and co-vocalist of Alice in Chains, my all-time favorite band. I think of Jerry first and foremost as a songwriter before I think of him as a guitar player or a singer, even though he's great at both of those things. He just writes such amazing songs with great hooks. I was recently watching Rick Beato's video where he breaks down his favorite Alice in Chains material. And if you're not familiar with that one or haven't seen it, I will link to it. It is phenomenal, as you would expect from Rick. But there was a comment in there. I was reading the comments, and I can't take credit for this, but a comment that somebody wrote really resonated with me about Jerry, where they said they had always thought of Jerry Cantrell as the David Gilmour of 90s rock. And I love that. I mean, it speaks to how tasteful Jerry's playing is. he's not a shredder, even though I tend to like that music at certain times and stuff. He's not a shredder. He knows when to play and when not to play. He can rip it when he needs to, but he doesn't have to do it all the time. He can sing. I fully support the idea that Jerry and Lane were the best vocal harmony duo since Lennon and McCartney. I would stand by that one for sure. I'm a particular fan of the Lane era of Alice in Chains, but props to William Duvall as well. I never saw Alice in Chains live during the Lane Staley era, but I've seen them 3 or 4 times during the William Duvall era, and I'm so glad that they found him and were able to keep the band going. I've never been as close to the performance when seeing Alice in Chains as I was the other night at Jerry Cantrell, and that was a factor, of course. I mean, we're seeing him perform at House of Blues, Las Vegas. It's a small venue, last of a dying breed in that sense, and we're right up front. I mean, I'm almost dead center, just a little bit to the left, maybe 15 feet at the most from the stage, just right there up front. So the sound was perfect. I mean, for me, I'm surrounded throughout that show with people that were like super fans like myself. Everybody knows every word to every song, and we're all singing along. I mean, it was euphoric at times. It was like my favorite songs being, performed by the guy that wrote them, and the whole crowd is super into it. It sounded amazing, not only because of our proximity to the stage and the PA and all that, but because Jerry stepped it up and brought a 7-piece band on the road with him. All right, now, obviously, he's not worried about making the most money he can possibly make, because 7 people on the road is pretty expensive. And these weren't all no-name people either. I mean, just on vocals alone, filling that Lane Staley and later on William Duvall role, he brought Greg Puciato, who is the singer of the Dillinger Escape Plan. And I didn't recognize him at first, but realized it later on. So he's got a 7-piece band. You got Jerry playing guitar and singing. You got Greg Puciato that I just mentioned, also on vocals. Then I don't remember anybody else's name, and I apologize for this one, but there's another guy playing lead guitar who was killing it all night long. Then you've got another guy in the back corner of the stage who's playing a lap steel guitar and sometimes an acoustic guitar. You could barely even see him. You got your drummer, you got your bass player, and then you've also got a keyboard player. And all these guys are professional musicians. So, I mean, it was the second to last night of the tour. They were so tight. They were just in step the whole way. And with a band of that size and caliber, I mean, they were really doing the music justice. It was sounding amazing. Couple other thoughts about the show. I'm kind of a guitar geek and gear geek, and I always pay attention to what people are playing. I noticed that Jerry and his other fellow guitar player were playing Friedman heads with Marshall 4x12 cabs. I couldn't tell what they had on the floor in terms of pedal boards, but what surprised me by far the most, I mean, I would have bet anything that Jerry would be playing his new Gibson signature Les Paul, and he didn't play it all night. He's got a signature Les Paul custom, just like that, but it's called the Wino Les Paul because rather than black like a custom would normally be, it's a wine red. Now, he's owned this original wine red custom for many years, and once he signed on with Gibson last year as an endorser of the brand, they decided to remake that guitar and make it available. And I looked at it and was like, ooh, I want one. And then I saw that it was $9,000. And I was like, I don't think I want it that much. So I expected to see him playing either his original or one of the new ones that Gibson has created. And that was not the case. They were not there that night. He did play a different Les Paul and a couple other Gibson guitars. He came out with a hollow body, very similar to that Gibson there. But what was interesting, it was for the opening song. He came out with it, there were like lights inside of the guitar, really bright lights that gave this cool effect of light shooting out through the F-holes of the guitar. That was how he opened the show, so that was pretty cool. But I just totally expected to see that signature custom, and the only reason that I can think of that he wouldn't have played it was because it's just too expensive to take on the road. He probably doesn't want to ruin the original one, and the new ones are so expensive, I just have to assume it's not something you want to take on the road. Could be wrong, but again, I was really expecting to see that guitar, and I did not. You did see something that Jerry has always been very well known for in the guitar world, which are his use of G&L guitars. If you're not familiar with G&L, G&L stands for George and Leo, meaning George Fullerton and Leo Fender. After Leo Fender sold Fender guitars to CBS, He worked around with a couple other music brands, most notably the Ernie Ball Music Man Company back in the 70s, but then ended up starting a new company with George Fullerton called G&L Guitars, where he continued to iterate on the classic Fender designs from years previously. So the Telecaster, the Stratocaster, the Jaguar, and some of the basses. He continued to evolve those instruments up till the point of his passing, and the company G&L lives on today. They still make guitars, and one of these days I'm going to buy one. It's like on my list to own a G&L. I just haven't had one so far. But Jerry has always been known, and this goes back to like the early days of Alice in Chains, for playing that G&L Rampage. I remember it used to have the 99.9 KSW, which is the rock station in Seattle. It had that sticker on it, and he was famous for playing that guitar always. I believe he even had a signature line with them for a while. I don't know if that's still current. I know that he's with Gibson now. But Jerry played several G&L guitars throughout the show. He had a couple different Rampages, which sound great. And then he was also playing an ASAT, which is their Telecaster model, for some of the a little bit twangier sounding songs. Now, speaking of the songs, let's talk about what Jerry played at the show. I got to admit, I was kind of wrong on what I was expecting. I mean, I was expecting to hear a lot of stuff that was from the new album or from his solo albums. I've been listening to all three of his solo albums a lot recently, but I've always listened to his stuff as soon as it comes out. I remember when Boggy Depot came out in '98, and I was all over it. I was really hoping that the opening track from that album would be played at the show, and it wasn't. And that's probably like my only downer for the entire experience. I was expecting Jerry to play some Alice in Chains material, but I was kind of thinking it was going to be like the acoustic stuff. I don't know, Nutshell or something like that. I just wasn't expecting him to come out and rock with it. So show starts, comes out playing Atone, which is the opening track on his new solo record. Makes perfect sense that he would open the show with that song as well, since he's touring to support that record. And that was fine. Second song, Them Bones, the opening track from Dirt. And if you know that song and you know how aggressive, and if you can picture Lane and those screams, just the all four. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go find the album Dirt by Alice in Chains and just press play. Listen for a minute and you'll get the idea that this is an aggressive song. It's in your face. That album was their crowning achievement, and at least in terms of commercial success. But for them to play that as the second song of the night, it was like, okay, I can see what we're in for now. It kind of changed my perspective, but in a good way. I was like, all right, clearly he's going to play a lot of this good stuff. And again, we're right up front. That 7-piece band, I mean, they were killing it. So in terms of other Alice in Chains material that Jerry played, there was, let's see, from the Facelift album, going back, Sea of Sorrow. My favorite deep cut from that album is Sea of Sorrow, that and Sunshine probably. And they played Sea of Sorrow. I've never seen Alice in Chains play that song before, so that was a really nice surprise. And the crowd loved it. We were going nuts for that one. And then also from Facelift, later on in the show, I can't remember if it was the end of the main part or if it was in the encore, but they did do Man in the Box, as you might expect. And shout out to Greg Puciato on that one. He absolutely killed it on the Lane portion of that song. It was outstanding. As far as other eras of Alice in Chains material, I mean, they played No Excuses. I think they played Got Me Wrong as well. They definitely played Down in a Hole, and that was just a crowd favorite. I mean, everybody around me was so into that and singing their heart out. They played Wood. I've got that one. I've got a video of that here on my channel. Wood was outstanding. Crowd went crazy as soon as that opening bass line started off. And Rooster was part of the encore. Everybody, kind of figured that Jerry would play that. He famously wrote that about his dad's experience in Vietnam. And another shout out to Greg Puciato on that one. He really killed it. The only problem, I wish I could have listened to Greg a little bit more, but between myself and all the people around me that are super fans and singing their heart out, it was almost like Greg and Jerry were in the background. But, I'm sure they would prefer it that way as well. It was just the crowd was so into it. It made it extremely special. Jerry played a bunch of other stuff from his solo albums, mostly the new one, but a couple of the other previous two as well. One funny thing about the show was that he played one song twice during the show. Had to Know from the new record. He played it once, kind of midway through the show, and then I think it was during the encore. He was having a problem with his guitar. I remember he had strapped on this Gibson Flying V, and he was working the crowd up. You can do louder than that, Vegas, and the crowd's roaring. And then he's like, I guess you were so loud that you broke my guitar. And he wasn't able to play the song with the Flying V. So we went over to the roadie, exchanged that for a Les Paul that he had been playing earlier. And then they kept on playing. And the only detail that I can't remember here is, was it immediately at that point that he switched it up and went into Had to Know, or did they do one other song? And then I just remember him going into those heavy chords for Had to Know. And I kind of looked at the guy next to me who I could tell was a super fan, and he knew every word to every song. And I was like, didn't they already play this? They played this. And he's like, yeah, they played this. And it was like, okay, whatever. I'm not tripping, but they played it again. So whatever, that was fine. Overall, just an awesome set list. I mean, he really kind of gave the fans what they wanted to hear. And it was just... It was awesome. It was a great experience. Everybody was enjoying the music, and they were throwing picks out there. My buddy got one of the picks on the floor, which was really cool. So I highly recommend checking out a show at the House of Blues if you're able to. Get GA, in my opinion. I mean, you're able to get so up close to, you know, an artist. If you care about the artist, and if it's like a hero of yours or something, you're not going to have a chance to get this close anywhere else. I mean, I've never been this close at an Alice in Chains show. Those are always bigger venues. This was a great chance to just get up there and rock out with the music. And it was just all people that were, you know, kind of the same way as me about it. They were just really, really into it. So, you know, for me, I mean, I've been going to concerts for nearly 30 years now, and I've seen a lot of shows, and I gotta call it, this is a top 5 show for me in my entire life. And I really wasn't like expecting that. I mean, I knew it was gonna be good. I was excited to see it, but for it to be as good as it was a nice surprise. So anyway, I hope you have enjoyed the review. Here comes that footage that I was telling you about. I like getting this stuff on camera because it's the part that you can't find elsewhere, right? It's unique to that one evening. You're gonna find other live performances of all these songs or record performances, but these spur of the moment things that happened the night of, I wanted to share as much of that as possible. So enjoy the stories, enjoy the footage. If you're digging our content, just ask you a favor. Subscribe to our channel. We would really appreciate it. We're pumping out content regularly, and we're trying to build up as big of an audience as we can. Join us. We're exploring Vegas. We're doing fun things, and we'd like to have as many people along for the ride if we can. So I've also got some affiliate links in the description of this video. If you're looking to shop for concert tickets, show tickets, event tickets, whatever, everything that we're affiliated with is 100% guaranteed. There's no knockoff tickets. I've been burned by that in the past, and I wouldn't affiliate with anybody otherwise. So got some links for StubHub, Ticket Liquidator, Ticket Network. They're all in the description of this video. So enjoy the stuff from Jerry. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video. All right, bye.
Thank you!
A long time ago, dude. How we doing, Vegas? You all right? That dude, you can hold it up there. All right, you're looking good. Cool. Our tour's almost over, man. This is our second to last show, so let's try to make it a special one, all right? I know it's already special to me because I lost about $3 grand today, so, you know. Yeah! 26. Somebody told me at the meet and greet a story about the guy yelling out that exact same song for the whole set. And I guess apparently in the past, this sounds like something I would totally do. Of course I was going to play it, but I got to that point and I pointed it out. You've been yelling for it all night, dude, and now we're not going to play it. And I just wanted to put some minutes. We'll get to it, dude. He's up. All good. Pretty good. I got to say one other thing. Something that happened to me today has never happened before. There's a lot of weird shit that happens with my job. Interactions with people, it's mostly all cool, but sometimes there's some real things that really kind of take you by surprise. The very last couple in the meet and greet today, they walk up and I'm getting ready to say hello, sign some fucking shit for him, give him some guitar picks, take a picture. Dude drops to his knees, opens up a box, hands her a rock, and asks her to marry him. And she said yes. So, I've never had anybody propose in front of me before, so if you're out there, congratulations. That was fun. It's your first. Oh, not bad. We still have firsts at my age. It's nice. I don't know if you know this, but I'm surrounded by some talented motherfuckers up here. That's fucking all you got? Come on, make some noise. Roger Joseph Manning Jr. on keys. George Adrian, the was player. Yes, run on drums. $80 on pedal steel. Michael goes up. He goes about $80 now. Tyler Bates, my good friend over there on guitar. Whatever the fuck you need to do, he can get it done. The guy that helps him make the vocal plane fly, Greg Puciato. Yeah. Jerry Cantrell, thanks for coming to our show. For this next trick, I'm going to saw Greg in half. Where's the box?
Would I be the man in the box if you were winning?
Feeling loose, man. We're having a good time. Nice and easy, rocking out with people. This is great. I'm gonna play a song called Nobody Breaks You. Okay. Let's move it out. What do you got? Come on, baby, so you can make more noise than that. You guys are so happy before I play guitar. Come on, guys, stand up. You can stand up. Give me a moment, guys. Let me hear some noise one more fucking time! Oh yeah, that feels good. That'll carry us to San Diego. Thank you, Las Vegas! You take care, we'll see you real soon. Peace!